This spell uses art magic. Art magic is the practice of using art media and art forms to create changes in the inner and outer world of the witch. You don't have to be a good artist to be an art witch or to use art in your witching. Just bring your creativity, knowledge, and intention to the spell. I want to share with you a spell for protection. You can use this spell for yourself, for another person, or for a group of people. My spell is for trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. Because my spell is for a group of people, I'm using a symbol that represents them. For my spell, I'm using the trans flag. If you are doing the spell for a specific person and you're drawing a human figure like mine, I would recommend writing their full name and their date of birth on the figure to identify them. You could also use a full body picture of that person. And just have it printed and glue it to a piece of paper. I'm using Posca markers for my spell, but you can use anything you want. And I chose colors that symbolize protection for me. The first step is to draw a very tight line around your figure, the person you're trying to protect. I wanted this line to be as close as possible so nothing could get through. No harm can make it through to trans people, because the line is so tight around the figure I'm representing. Draw concentric lines around your figure using the colors that you chose that represent protection. While you draw these circles, chant words of power. The phrase I used was, "You are protected by the strength of love." I repeat that phrase over and over so that it becomes sort of a meditation while I do the spell and expand outside of myself, thinking of all the people who love trans people, letting the spell give them power. At this point, I'm not worried about the lines being nice and tight up against each other, but what I am concerned about is that it is a solid circle all the way around the figure, that there's no broken lines. You can stop whenever it feels right. You might just fill up this entire piece of paper with these concentric circles, chanting as you go. I decided to switch to writing my words of power onto the paper. So I began writing my phrase, "You are protected by the strength of love," at the top of the figure, and then just continued writing it over and over and over. Once I reached kind of the limits of the page, then I decided to stop writing. Again, do what you feels right. You might fill up this entire page with your words of power and your circles. When I was done, I cut out the empty space, and at this point, your spell is done. But there's more you can do if you want to, and I'll show you some ideas. One thing to do is just to continue to return to this spell over the next days, weeks, months, or years. Just chant these words of powers as you sit with your spell, and add energy to your intention. I love using crystal grids, so I would set up a simple one here. Start with the clear quartz at the center, and then choose crystals for protection. This is black tourmaline. I also used amethyst. I added hematite. And because my words of power had to do with love, I added rose quartz. And I'm adding a little bit more clear quartz to really give it energy. I put the clear quartz tower at the center over the figure, and then started loading the rest of the crystals in to create a grid for protection and love. Make sure you charge the crystals before you place them, and place them going clockwise around the figure. There are a bunch of resources online about making crystal grids, and I suggest you look into them. I think they're awesome, and here's my completed grid. I would leave this on my desk or my altar for days or weeks, however long feels right. You can just return to it again and chant your words of power, send energy, and just keep this strength going for as long as you can. Another thing you can do is just return to the spell over and over, almost turning it into a ritual. So here I've added it to my altar, and I'll do a little candle magic. I'd recommend a black candle, but really just sit at the spell, chanting those words of power again as the candle burns. You can use the power of tarot or other symbols to add to your spell. Because my chant had to do with love, I chose cards that represent love and protection for me. And most importantly, don't forget the mundane work. Get involved in organizations that help to protect trans people and to support trans wellness and joy.